107.8 FM.
Hello and welcome to Sundazed. Now this week we're going to be talking about the Hunger Games. Now we know that a lot of you have been reading this trilogy of books by Suzanne Collins and that you've really been enjoying it. And I think a lot of you are probably looking forward to seeing the film when it comes out on the 23rd of March. Now we've been into Hetherset High and we've been chatting with some of the pupils there about what they think of the book and why they've been enjoying it so much. This is a fantastic book and it talks about so many different themes and it's so entertaining and every chapter ends on a cliffhanger, and I know that you've all just been really, really enjoying this book. And we have this for you now. I think I find it frightening. I find the tension in it frightening from what I've read, because it's, you know what's going to happen, so you've got that kind of, you know, that awful sadness. The bit about people closing their shutters at night, right at the beginning, closing their shutters and waiting to see what happens and going through those awful weeks while people are fighting. Does it ever depress you? Does it ever make you feel... Does it make you feel?
Yeah.
It does. It makes you feel a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Makes you think.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes you're really unsure what's going to happen, really, half the time.
You
Yeah.
just want to read on.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you think that's the mark of a good book, something that makes you feel and makes you think?
Yeah.
You identify very strongly with the character, who's not only the character but the narrator. Now sometimes, although that can make you identify with the main character very strongly, it can make the writing a little bit artificial because that person is having to do an awful lot of telling of the story from their perspective. Did you ever find that a problem? Not from any time I'm suggesting it should be, but I just wondered, does everybody sort of just go with it and find that that's...
Yeah, I thought it was beautifully written and it's just really moving
Yeah.
all the way through.
It's simple and snappy,
Yeah,
I think.
and at the end of every chapter there's a cliffhanger, so you just want to read on and you
Mm.
can't stop.
Right, okay. There's certainly a big cliffhanger at the end of chapter 1.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how other people would view the future as kind of apocalyptic.
I think it's fairly commonplace, isn't it, amongst human beings? They're always dreaming up one apocalypse after another and trying to work out.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see different people's views of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Also,
For anybody, feel free, as long as you...
Yeah,
give
because
one another room to
most stories
speak
that
and
you
do
read about the
stuff in.
future, you think it's going to be all high-tech, but other stories show it as a barren place where there's hardly any people there.
Okay.
And everyone's all poor and living in the slums.
Yeah, it's so basic, the districts, but then like in the capital it's so high tech. So
Right.
it's like a contrast of...
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
quite unbelievable. I mean, there's no like actual landscape from what you read of it. These districts just have certain areas like the lumberjacks,
Right.
or that's where all the trees would just be. You wouldn't understand it. It just makes you think.
Are
about
they
it.
named for... Is each district named for its kind of natural resource? The seam, I assume, was something to do with the coal seam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got the
Yeah.
seams.
It's the poor part of District 12.
Right. So really they're using... It's gone back to a kind of feudal system almost, where the capital is essentially the castle in the middle with all the wealthy people living in fairs and doing their thing.
also like each district kind of provides a service for the capital almost. So in District 12 it's coal, but like other places like District 4 is like fishing, so they get seafood and stuff
District
like that.
11 is to do with rum and bread.
Agriculture.
Agriculture.
District 3 is technology.
District 13 was weapons, and District 2 lumberjacks. District 10 livestock.
No,
Right.
7 is lumber.
Ah,
No,
sorry.
I'm,
I can never remember them all.
I'm not giving anything away then if I say that District 13 was obliterated. And
No,
presume
that-
because that comes at the beginning of the book.
Yeah,
that's
at the beginning.
That's no spoiler there, don't worry.
Presumably that all went wrong because of the weapons. They were the ones who had the
They had
arms.
to.
There was like
There was a massive...
There was an
war.
uprising.
There was an uprising
So the
from
capital
all the
just-
districts.
yeah.
And that's how the Hunger Games started. Like
But District 13 led it, really.
Yeah,
didn't they?
District,
So
District
so they
13 had all
destroyed
the
District
weaponry.
13, but now they hold the Hunger Games every year to prove that the capital still own all the districts, to prove that they can send their children out to just to fight to the death, so they're still
In
Right,
power.
okay. Technically, is there enough food for everybody?
No.
No.
Well,
It
was.
Yes,
Say there is.
if they were
If
to
you
share
take
it, yeah. If they were to share it, then there would be way more than enough food. But the capital just have so much food and they just waste it.
The
Right.
capital rely on all the other districts, and there'd be nothing without them, because everything from the district goes to the capitals mostly.
Okay. A lot of the things that you're telling me about the way this is run, it's either kind of analogous of a feudal system, like the castle in the middle and all the people doing their poor and subsistence living outside the walls, but it's also like the world today. There is plenty of food. Technically there should be enough food, but how many people in the world are starving? Because the problem is you've got to be near it. The problem is distribution, the problem is economy, the problem is masses of things that in a decent kind of civilised world, people are constantly struggling to try and get to grips with that, and yet it is a problem. And I guess to some extent it always will be. There will always be people who have more, and there will always be people who have less, because life is random, essentially.
I think that's why it's so popular, because it is so relevant.
Yeah.
It's so futuristic, and you don't know that that's going to happen, but it is relevant to our time.
Also, I think it hits home, like when you see, like, because Katniss has to go out and hunt for her family so that she can feed them, and like we just sit at home and we can eat whenever we want, really.
The next meal has to be caught. And of course a lot of people do live like that. A lot of people, millions of people in the world, have to go out every day and get stuff. I think the thing that is particularly sinister in light of that is that the people who have got the comfort and the security in the capital, they're the ones who have got time to be dreaming up methods of control, and they're the ones who have gone into this particularly cruel and vicious scenario, which is psychological warfare as much as anything else, to everyone else.
However, like most people in the capital, they're a bit dumb to say. It's only a few of the, like, President Snow, who like runs the whole capital. It's only a few people who actually know, like, about how they need to keep the Hunger Games going to control the districts and everything, because quite a few people, like when Katniss meets her stylists, she kind of realises that they don't really get it.
Ah, right.
Yeah. So not all the people in the capital like have this. They need to run everything.
I'll tell you what that makes me think of. The thing that immediately makes me think of is Germany in the Second World War. How many of the German people really knew what the government was doing?
Some of them did.
So a lot would.
Not every.
But they couldn't speak up. If they speaked up, they would have been killed. They'd be killed.
This is true, but I think it's also true that to a large extent, I mean, I just remember seeing footage of kind of your average Joe walking past the death camps when the war was over, and just thinking, my God, what is this? What's been going on? They didn't realise the true extent of it.
Yeah, the capital citizens, they see it as a source of entertainment. They don't get how wrong it is.
Yeah,
Because it's just something that happens like all their life, most of them.
But if you've been raised like that all your life, then you won't really know much different, will you?
It's only the
and that's very
districts.
sinister and
It's
very
only
worrying,
the districts,
isn't
and
it?
it's not even all of the districts who see stuff wrong with it.
Because some districts train the children up from like an early age.
They choose.
Yeah,
They volunteer.
They volunteer to do it because they want to like take part in the Hunger Games. It's like a sporting event for them.
They want the fame of winning.
Yeah.
The book, I think, goes a lot by what it was like in the World War II and World War One, because where everyone was put in camps, that's what it's like for the districts, with the capital just taking over, controlling everything,
it's ghettos, isn't it? They've been forced into ghettos and forced to supply the capital with the sort of main ingredients for survival while they are living at a subsistence level. And of course you've got black market as well.
Yeah.
So you've got kind of, the culture and then the subculture of it all. There are so many things weaving through it, so many things, I suppose, that make you think about the world as it has been, the world as it has always been, the world as it is now, and of course what the world might be like in the future. Because like you say, you imagine that it's going to be, spaceships and I don't know, whatever, everything very silver and shiny, but it's not. It's actually gone back to quite a basic
prehistoric kind of setting, like a desert landscape with hardly any trees or plants there.
Yeah. And the animals being
evolutionary.
Yeah.
And genetically modified. Like, that's the thing I liked about it, was that's the futuristic element to it, was the mutations. Was
right, okay.
They looked, some of them looked like the normal, but then they weren't. like some were trying to trick you into thinking that, some would blend in like camouflage, and all these little random ideas put together.
Tell me more about that.
Trackerjackers are like huge wasps, and when they sting you, they basically give like horrible swells and they make you have hallucinations.
Right.
You just see all your fears
Come,
back to you.
yeah.
Also,
Dracula.
mockingjays are like a default of the capital, because it was when jabberjays, they were a mutation like of the capital, and they were like birds disguised to record messages of like maybe uprisings that could happen in districts.
Yeah, the rebels.
Yeah, but then the rebels started to trick the jabberjays by saying like silly things to them, so they had to wipe them out. However, before, the jabberjays, like, they bred with the mockingbird,
right,
and they created this mockingjay,
yeah,
and that's what Katniss wears on a pin.
okay,
It's
and that's the
basically-
type
Yeah.
of the last book.
The last bit.
Mockingjays, they can record tunes.
They
They
play back.
remember
They play back them and they remember them. And when one sings it, the rest of them begin to pick up the tune and eventually make like a whole cacophony of noise of this tune.
And it'll go for miles around. And it's in the book, one of the people called Rue calls out a tune, and it's meant to be a tune so Katniss and Rue can contact each other to say that they're okay.
Oh, right, okay. So to some extent they're able to use these things to their
The
advantage.
mockingjay is basically the sign of the revolution,
Yeah.
which is why Katniss wears it.
But what I like about it is that from what I've read already, it has me casting a long way forward and thinking, well, how do they get out of this? Because it's made, so much happens in that first chapter, so much is made clear, and yet it's never forced down your throat. You never feel as though you're being asked to swallow a kind of tightly wrapped bundle of information down in one go. It's drip fed, a little bit here and a little bit there, but it's told by story. It's told by showing what's going on. It's told by the emotions of the characters concerned, and that's obviously a key way of doing it. But even last night when I was thinking about it, I was thinking it's also setting up an awful lot of stuff. When somebody's right down at the bottom like that, the thing that you're automatically hoping right from the outset is that things get better.
I think what helps with like that whole, like, you hope that will happen, is that it's written like present. So it's not talking about what has happened like in the past, but it's written how it's happening, which I really like.
Now, is that sustained throughout all the books, if any of you have read?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So it's told in first person, present tense, all the way through.
It does go back to some stories.
But that's when she like
Yes, to do retrospective in places, and
Yeah.
that's a very sensible choice
But I
for
think
something like this.
Katniss is so like relevant, and you can relate to her when you're reading it, and you can see like the pain she's going through.
Yeah.
She's just so relatable.
One of the things that interested me is the little kind of subtle betrayals of the hardness that she's kind of come to sort of survive with, I suppose, is when she was talking about the lynx that followed her around, and she had to kill it in the end because it was scaring off the game, and she said she almost regretted it. So regretting something is a luxury. And then she casually says, I got a good price for its pelt, though. There isn't room for regret in a place like this.
It's all she can do to help her family. That's her main priority.
Yeah.
And she'll do anything to keep them alive and herself alive.
Do you find yourself inhabiting that main character? You see things through her eyes.
Yeah,
Clearly.
I see myself in that place. But I find it pretty scary because I think that I'm not even myself. I believe I'm that person.
Right.
That I'm
That's
experiencing the
kind of
same
what I was
pains.
interested in.
I'm experiencing the same pains that she is.
I think it's.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
When I read it, I like when you feel what she's feeling. It's so well written that you kind of like take a part of Katniss with you, because her dad obviously dies in it, and that's why she has to become the person who is the like bread maker of the family. But you kind of feel like, oh, my dad isn't dead. I feel that what would happen if my dad was, and things like that. What would I do?
And in a situation like that where somebody has to be the kind of literal breadwinner, who starts doing it?
Exactly.
Who starts doing it instead? This thing of seeing things through somebody else's eyes, it's almost as though you're kind of inside them, looking out through their eyes. That was why I was interested in what you said about feeling that you actually you become so engaged with the story and so engaged with the character that it's as though you are that character. Does that apply across the board with all the different characters, or is it mainly with Canis?
Yeah.
My problem is whenever I read a good book, I literally just sort of get warped into the world, like I get sucked into the book. And literally, my sister will come home from work, go in, oh, she's out here again, she's in her book. And I literally got to the chapter, end of the chapter, what? Did you say something?
Yeah, that's a wonderful process. I can't imagine just doing all of that electronically. I can't imagine the same sensation from reading something.
Yeah, I like the texture of the book, like the feel of the page.
Yeah.
You can't just go, I'm going to do that. Well, you can, you've got a Kindle, so that's not fair.
Yeah.
Kindles are like similar. You can go, flick the page, it's nice. I like holding the book.
Reading, isn't it, at the end of the day? But there's just something about paper, there's something about shoving a book in your pocket, there's something about, I don't know, the smell of it, the feel of everything. I mean, I'm interested in what happens when they're at school and they're spending their life getting to know people, and these are people who they might then be trying to kill.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's a very sinister element to
But
it.
Katniss is so unsociable.
Yeah.
She basically has Gale and then one other kind of friend,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
she doesn't even consider her a friend.
Right.
And she doesn't even talk to Gale, so at school she doesn't get to know anyone, and she's just left to her own, basically.
What does she represent, do you think, as an idea in the book? I mean, I ask this because I think survival, basic fundamental survival, being alive and staying alive as opposed to ending, seems to be a lot of what she's about. And I wonder, did you think that she represented a kind of central idea in some way? What does she make you think and feel?
I think maybe hope, because I don't know, but even though she is very unsociable and she's very blunt, I think she does care in many ways, and how she, I don't think this is a spoiler, but she volunteers for her sister at the reaping.
That I realise, I think.
When she does that, it's just like, you do care, and throughout the whole books, like in the third one, she does become more like, her symbol becomes like a prominent hope thing, and I think it is hope.
Yeah.
If you watch the trailer for the movie, you see her volunteer for her sister, you're just so moved by what she did.
Yeah.
And it's just the trailer, and
You get the point where she's moving and you hear all the thoughts and everything she's feeling, and she makes it sound like she's going a mile to get to this stage when it's only a couple of feet away.
Right, okay,
And she's got all of this going through her head in a couple of seconds before she grabs Prim, pushes her back, throws herself on the stage instead.
And you feel as though you're viewing it in slow motion, so that you can see and feel and experience every detail of what that must be like. Again, something it makes me think of when I remember reading something about Prim being the only one she truly felt she loved. Now I compare that to all this speculation about a love triangle, because you've got false love, you've got a kind of, romantic, but in that kind of overarching sense that you've got the fripperies and the gossip, that's a very kind of surface idea of love. But if you actually only do feel right from the outset that you feel love for one person, that's something much more fundamental, because she's not only fighting for her survival, she's fighting for the survival of somebody else. Yeah. Does that show through in the book? Is that one of the driving forces?
In it? A lot of the times in the games and through the capital, she sometimes indulges herself in thinking oh my gosh, I shouldn't be here, and she feels sorry for herself, and then she remembers Prim at home, and she gets her mind set that she has to do it for Prim.
All I can see by the end of the chapter, my mind keeps going back to it, is Prim standing there, small, pale, vulnerable, with her shirt hanging out at the back.
Little duck.
I'm thinking, tuck your tail in, little duck. How the hell are you going to fight for survival in. So Katniss is the obvious person to step forward.
Yeah, she can't bear the thought of her sister going to these games. She can't let her go and do that.
Her sister wouldn't survive
5
very
seconds.
long before she had a knife in her back.
No.
Because Prim is small, an easy target, and she might be able to hide behind a really small bush, but to get
To kill
equipment, food, everything else she needs, she wouldn't be able to do it.
She's not her sister, she can't survive.
No.
But she can do other stuff, and they're so different.
I think that's
but
like
they are the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that might be portrayed with like Buttercup, because Katniss was just gonna kill her because like, oh, it's another thing that she has to look after,
Not
another
enough.
thing that she
Yeah.
needs, another thing that she has to do. But then Prim, she wanted to keep it and look after it, and she's got like her mother's like nursing, like she helps with like the medicine and everything. And I think she wouldn't be able to kill anyone in those games because she would have the regret that Katniss wouldn't.
What you're describing to me there is somebody who in the book must seem to be kind of emblematic or, you know, a symbol of innocence.
Yeah.
And somebody who's not corrupted by what's happened, particularly if she's a healer. That's the
Yes, she is.
antithesis, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the complete opposite to, well, I mean, in some ways it's not the opposite to surviving, but it's certainly the opposite to surviving by trying to kill other people. You're surviving and making a living by healing other people.
Yeah.
Even if Katniss doesn't directly state this, she must perhaps feel, do you get the sense that she feels that her sister represents something that she wants to preserve?
Her sister, she sees her sister as like everything that's good in the world. And the games is just everything that's bad.
But that,
okay.
You know,
like her healing also comes through in Prim's goat, because they had to heal the goat's shoulder because it was infected or something.
Right, okay.
And
Source of income.
Katniss only saw it as a source of income, but Prim saw it as a new pet.
Right.
That kind of plays to the child.
It's a fluffy animal to cuddle up
And
to.
yet she's made this little goat's cheese out of it at the beginning.
But
And when
Katniss
you
only
think,
saw
when
it.
they're in the woods eating it, I don't know, it's about as far from a McDonald's as you could get this fresh bread and this little goat's cheese and
Prefer it to McDonald's.
berries. Sorry?
Prefer it to McDonald's.
Yeah, I would.
Yes, I think a lot of sane people would. There's something about, I don't know, everything has a kind of feeling to it. I mean, you know, occasionally we'll swing by McDonald's if we're in a hurry and can't be bothered to do something else, but we all feel slightly corrupted afterwards. Whereas there's something about a loaf of bread in the woods and berries and goat's cheese and stuff you've made yourself and stuff you've made
You feel
from
proud of
scratch.
for making it.
Yeah, there is. Could you pick a main theme from the book, or do you feel that it's too diverse for that? There are too many things going on.
It's too diverse for
Yeah,
it.
but I was going to say about back to how Katniss wants to protect Prim. Another one of the competitors in the games, because you can have alliances.
Okay.
There was Rue, and when she saw Rue, which is a small little girl, which reminds her very much of Prim, and she thought, poor thing, there's no one to no one to step up for her. There was no one to do that for her, and how glad she was that she made the choice for Prim.
Right. Okay.
And unlike Prim, Rue had the ability to at least jump from tree to tree, hide herself in the tallest tops of the trees where no one else can climb. Rue had the stability to get out of danger and wait for everyone else to kill themselves, so there's at least one contestant left, which maybe she might be able to surprise and kill.
Oh, right, okay.
She had that ability to do, but Prim wouldn't have had the chance.
No, she just wouldn't have been able to do that. It's almost as though it seems to me that Prim, for the purposes of the story, needs to be untouchable somehow, needs to be preserved as this idea.
Well, Prim is killing for her would not be an option. She doesn't want to do that. She wants to be everyone's friend. She wants to look after people, wants to help people. Being negative and dark about things, like she always sees things like rose-tinted glasses. She always sees things as good things, and she never sees them as the bad things. She just wants to preserve it, and she's basically like a little child. She just wants to see everything how she wants to see it, and not how the actual things are.
What's being said by that in the book, do you think? What's the author getting at with that idea? Can anybody sort of...
Prim and Katniss are kind of opposites.
Yes.
Chalk and cheese.
They
basically.
Chalk and
Why
cheese.
is that important? Why is it important to have those opposite? What does that do? What does it talk about?
I think it reflects like the whole situation in the book compared to like because Prim's innocence compared to the like darkness of the games itself.
Yeah.
Like it's I think it's a great contrast, but it's like a subtle contrast as well in the books.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's really nice of touch to the book.
Do you think that it explains or represents the complexity of the world, the complexity of choice?
Basically, Prim is like the light at the end of the tunnel. The games may be darkness, but Prim's the only light at the end of the tunnel for them.
So
she's
represents
the only
hope to some extent.
Yeah, she's the only light
I
there.
think maybe for Katniss she does that there will be like good in the earth.
Yeah.
There will always be someone like Prim will always make it better. But I don't think she might not represent hope for like everyone else because she doesn't. I don't think Prim has she wouldn't have the guts to go out there and say it.
No. Okay. Would it be fair to say, do you think, that Prim represents pacifism?
In the later books, Peter just wants peace. That's all he wants. He doesn't want any fighting.
Yeah.
Prim just wants to help people, so she is kind of like pacifism.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, she.
To a certain extent.
But in the later books, she does kind of
Get harsher.
Yeah.
Stronger.
If in a sense.
Prim admires her sister, and throughout the book you can see her develop.
She slowly develops from this small innocent girl to a girl who actually understands what's going on in life.
Wow, so that must be a very interesting journey to follow. How does it link to Katniss's journey?
Well, Prim can see things just the way they are, not like emotions about it. She can see things just for like a third person's view.
Yeah.
She looks at it and like sizes up the options and goes, well, you could do this, that makes more sense, but that's what you probably do.
Yeah.
And she literally Katniss looks at her and thinks, wow, I didn't know you could do that, Prim.
Are those personal journeys at the heart of the story, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
That's
more
what you're
on the
interested in
personal
the most.
journeys than anything else.
So even despite the blood, guts, gore, constant romping through one excitement and peril after another, it's that inner journey.
Well, we appreciate that, but most people go, oh, there's romance, oh, there's violence, I like this, I want to go this.
Oh, look, there's a gun. Oh, look, there's a knife being stabbed in something. Oh, look, an arrow flying into someone.
I think people who haven't
people.
read the book, they see it as that, but everyone who I've spoken to who has read the book, they see it for what it is, and they realise that it's not one thing.
The thing that I keep thinking about is Romans. You know, gladiators.
My sister, she heard the advertising of it on Kiss. I literally asked my other sister, I said, hey, I heard you want to go see the Hunger Games. And the sister went, oh no, you don't want to go see that? I've heard there's all violence and blood. I was like, okay. And literally my other sister was like, shh, don't speak of it in front of her. Because my other sister can't stand it. She's like, I hate violence and lot of things. I was like, I really shouldn't have brought this up now.
Well, that's all we had time for this week, but next week we're going to hear some more from the kids at Hetherset because it was quite a lengthy discussion and there were so many interesting points that they raised. And after that, as I say, we're going to be having a review of the film. And by all means, get in touch if you have something you'd like to say or contribute to those discussions. We'd be very glad to hear from you. That's all for now, folks, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Sundazed on Future Radio 107.8 FM.